Andrew Weissmann is a former assistant U.S. attorney who helped lead the Mueller investigation. Lisa Rubin is a former litigator and MSNBC legal analyst, two of my favorite legal eagles, joining me on a Friday night. Thank you both so much. Great to be here with you. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to start with you because you're an expert on many things, but one of your specialties is certainly following the money. This Trump legal brief goes very deep on how much money Judge Merchan's daughter's political firm makes. It's like continuously talking about this. Is this an actual legal argument? I hope not. Or just a kind of desperate stab at exciting Trump's base who loves these conspiratorial arguments?
It's the latter. Here, this is being made on the Friday before, the last week before the trial begins, so 10 days away. And there is a doctrine in the law, which is you cannot sort of sit on your rights. There is nothing new in here that could not either was known or could have been known a lot earlier than this. So you really can't make this at the last minute in order to recuse somebody. And I think I've said this before, and I really want people to focus on one thing. This brief is not signed by all of the lawyers on Trump's team. And I keep on saying that because it's such a tell. One of the lawyers, Susan Neklace, is a highly respected defense lawyer in New York. Lots of us know her and think that she's really terrific. She went to Yale. She's been a defense lawyer for years, and she is ethical. She did not sign this brief. To me, that is such a sign to the judge as to why she didn't.
That's such an interesting point. I definitely did not notice that. I mean, Lisa, I want to hear your reaction to that and your thoughts on the significance of that. I also want to ask you about, Trump is isn't he undermining it, I guess, by trashing the judge's daughter on social media before his lawyers filed this brief? It seems crazy to me. I'm a non-lawyer. But tell me about the one lawyer sitting out and that piece as well.
Well, first of all, let's start with the one lawyer sitting out. I think Andrew makes a very good point and observation. We've seen things like this before. For example, I can think of a situation a couple of years ago where a federal prosecutor signed a brief that others would not in their office, and that, too, made a statement. It was also in a Trump-related case. But going back to, does this undermine their argument because they have spent so much time specifically defending their client's right to say whatever he wants about the daughter? They say that the social media posts were sort of in service of this recusal argument. I think the tail is wagging the dog there, Jen. That's not the case. But unfortunately for them, their political and their legal strategies have sort of collapsed into one. If you read through this motion in detail, it sort of reads like an Oppo research brief and not an actual legal document. And that's, too, a tell, because the Trump operation seems to be just working from the same playbook all the way around. Everybody is part of the same operation here. Political strategy, legal strategy, they can't be distinguished anymore.
You're right. I read it thinking it says something like she is the number 17 Democratic firm in the country or something like that, which is like, what does that have to do with anything? Let me ask you, Andrew, because it's important for people to understand what's a legal argument, what's not. So that's why I'm asking all these questions. Trump's lawyers also say Judge Merchan can't be impartial because he talked about the case publicly. Now, here are the comments they cite. Quote, "Your Honor reportedly stated that getting ready for the historic trial is intense." Whoa, that's a humdinger there. "The court is striving to make sure that I've done everything I could to be prepared and to make sure that we dispense justice." Outrageous again. "There's no agenda here. We want to follow the law. We want justice to be done. That's all we want." None of that sounds biased to me. Why are they making the argument that those are cases of him exhibiting that?
Jen, there's one thing that you left out. In connection with all of those statements, he said, "I want to be clear. I'm making general comments. None of it should be taken to reference this case." So he was talking about what the court in general does in front of it. What is the role of the rule of law and of the judge in this system? But he pointedly said in that piece, "I am not in any way going to talk about or reference this specific case." So that is, again, laughable. It is, as Lisa points out, this is not being the audience for this brief is not the court. It is the sort of court of public opinion, and it's just a sliver of that court of public opinion. I think this is one where we still should be, fastening our seatbelts. We are going to have a trial a week from Monday.
So, Lisa, before I let you go, I just have to ask one more question. It seems pretty ironic to me that the Trump team is going so hard on the judge, but they are, of course, not saying the same thing about Aileen Cannon. I mean, maybe it's not surprising. I understand Aileen Cannon has a little bit of bias, but it's a bit ironic. Am I wrong here?
It's not ironic, Jen, but I think there are ways to distinguish the two situations if we're being fair. We don't have any indicia that Aileen Cannon has someone in her family, for example, who occupies a similar space in the Republican stratosphere that Judge Merchan's daughter does. And in fact, they point that out in the brief. They say that if Aileen Cannon had a first-degree relative who worked for WinRed or MAGA Inc., people on the left would be screaming bloody murder, and they're not wrong about that. But that having been said, what I think really distinguishes the two is Judge Merchan actually makes rulings, and they don't like those rulings. And Judge Cannon, for the most part, is avoiding ruling on anything at all. And when she does, it happens to be sometimes in the special counsel's favor, even though it doesn't seem that way in the long run.
Andrew Weissmann, Lisa Rubin, thank you both for joining me on a Friday evening. Great to see you as always.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.